good afternoon, good evening. How is everybody? Welcome to another episode of Roll Around, Find Out. In today's episode, we're going to revisit one topic that I'm striving for, which is to find the best version of a Final Fantasy VII conversion to a TTRPG out there. And I think today I found an almost perfect one that is certainly close enough that with some quote-unquote homebrew or just some tweaks, I could get a very serviceable system. As I like to do, bury the lead. I've mentioned it before. Final Fantasy VII, in my eyes, is basically a perfect game. I was in 8th grade when it was officially released, and I was on the hype train, 7th grade, probably into 6th grade, scouring reviews online every Sunday, just being excited to see previews in like a Best Buy ad. And then finally when it was released, oh yeah, Final Fantasy did it for me. So when I look at art, you know, Mona Lisa, MC Escher, you name the artist, Salvador Dali, I'm sure they have talent, however they're trained, whatever. At the end of the day, though, I think art is, when you look at it, it turns something visual into a thought or an experience. It reminds you of something. It impacts you in a way that, beyond looking at a blank piece of paper or a mundane item like a car license plate, which, to be fair, some people, maybe, you're super into car license plates. But when I look at this art right here, man, I am just taken back to 8th grade, taken back to playing this game for, I think it was 60 hours, 70 hours. And then my brother Brett comes home. He's 9 years older than me. He must have been home from college. And he's playing some, what was it? NHL 97. Saves over my Final Fantasy game. I vividly remember I had basketball practice, 8th grade basketball practice, showing up visibly red in the face. Kids knew I had been crying. 70 hours of my life, poof, gone. Had to start all over. I just was obsessed with this game. Cloud, so cool looking. The art on this cover, taken back. He's the same color, but in the game, the Shinra, what is that? They blow up the reactor. I think that's a Shinra reactor. And in the game, it's dark. It's kind of a cyberpunk aesthetic. And the way they whiten it out for extra contrast on Cloud, the way it's the angle of it, he's just this little nothing going against this big corporation, and then it turns into, it spans the globe. Final Fantasy VII. I could literally talk about it all day. Okay, so thanks to Google, I found some pretty good Final Fantasy TTRPGs. Since there are, at this point, 15, 16, 17 different Final Fantasies plus offshoots, how are you going to encapsulate all of those? And so I just want Final Fantasy VII. And I kind of realized there's no just one Final Fantasy VII TTRPG out there, but this game here, Omega Fantasy II, is probably as close as I'm going to get to a direct Final Fantasy VII game. There are influences of all sorts of Final Fantasy games, but I think 7 is probably has the most influence. If I didn't already close out of it, which it looks like I did, let's see if I can get lucky here. Now, I wanted to record this, recording my desktop. I want to go through the guide together, which is something I'm probably going to do in the future. It just makes total sense rather than just blabbering about a PDF. If I have a PDF, I should load it up for you. Okay. Maybe, was it here? History here. Today. Google. Of course not. Final Fantasy VII TTRPGs. And let's go Omega Fantasy 2. PDF. Yep, here we go. Okay. So, I am not a Reddit aficionado, so I don't know exactly how to get you to this page. Is it FFRPG? Here is a good list of Final Fantasy role-playing games. Some of them, like I said, are more, they span more the whole breadth of Final Fantasy. I think this D6 is probably the most popular. And yeah, let's see. Let's pull this up. Sure, let's download it. 270. Yeah, this is it. 274 pages. Clearly fan made. Love this aesthetic right here. I'll talk more about how I think this should be the Omega Fantasy 2 character sheet, something like that. So, black jobs. Black mage, blue mage, white mage, different equipments, how combat works. I'm not going to go into details here, but going through this was, let's see, actually, let me go, here's what I really care. Okay, the world. Okay, so here they have different races, but if you want to run a Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah style game, here are ways to do it. So we're going to drop down to page 195. And that's probably page number, not including the title. Okay, there's 8. All right, yeah, here's 7. Okay, here's 7. So they give you a little background. It's a modern setting, which I think Final Fantasy VII might be the first modern day setting as opposed to a fantasy setting. Cars, TV, etc. They talk about space. So great background on Shinra, jobs, races, adventure ideas. This is great. This optional rule of materia, because this D6 version, which Omega Fantasy is also D6, they kind of have to make some tweaks to it. And somewhere in here, this was the biggest turnoff to me. Okay. It isn't unusual to see a warrior with glowing circles of light shining through the skin of his forearm. So in here, you just like absorb the materia, which I am not a Final Fantasy VII I love, but all of the offshoots I don't really know much about. I know the movie, which it will come to me later. I was a fan of that, but here I didn't really know. Just trying to. Oh yeah, Advent Children's the movie. I was about that. I think in high school or college I got like some pirated version of it. I remember it being terrible quality, and it was made for like 2 inches by 2 inches, and then I had to blow it up, and it was trash. But then like Crisis Core, stuff like that, I don't really know much about those. So that materia, that was a big turnoff for me. However, something really cool right here. It's got a list of all of the materias, all of the ways they level up, all of the bonuses that they do, rarities. Let's see. When I said bonus, I mean like materia is a bonus to your stats. Let's see. Do they have HP plus in here? I don't see it. So HP drain, but no HP plus or MP plus. So not a complete list, unless I'm missing it. I don't think so. But super good reference point. So I recommend checking this out. But it is not Omega Fantasy 2, which I will read this blurb here. So it says, Final Fantasy, its themes, art, and other affiliated content are owned by Square Enix. Omega Fantasy is a fan project under the Creative Commons license, which, good news for me if I choose to edit it. It will submit itself to any demands from the original IP owner, Square Enix. As a fan project, it will never charge for anything or make commercial interactions. So they're basically saying like, hey, fans are making this, and if Square gets mad, we'll stop. But as long as we're not making money off of it or claiming that it's ours, like, go for it. Okay? So, in my research, I couldn't find like an Omega Fantasy 2 website. Maybe it exists. Just that Reddit post is all I could find. And when I YouTubed it, there was just one video, which, let's see. Yeah, as long as I got it here, let's check it out. YouTube. Omega Fantasy 2. RPG. Spoilers. This is a re-record because I am not happy with how the audio turned out here. 2 hours and 20 minutes. Let's shorten that down. Okay, but this one right here. Notepad's little opinion on Omega Fantasy 2 in about 3 minutes. And basically he says it's a good game, but he doesn't really get the Final Fantasy takeaway from it. And I think he's wrong on that, but he does have some fair criticisms. The first one being, when you look at the table of contents here, combat is first. Now, I would say gameplay is first, but he has a criticism that says, hey, normally how it works is it's character creation, then how you play, or at least combat after. And so, yeah, I think there are examples of the gameplay, but they do put combat first, which is a little but okay. Let's bury the lead as I do And we're actually going to do the first thing here, gameplay last. All right. Let's jump down to the game master stuff, which this document is bookmarked. Amazing. All right. In the bestiary, which my heart hurts, I still want to call it the bestiary. They talk about combat encounters, levels, making things fair, things like that. But what I really care about is the bestiary right here. Now, in my opinion, the biggest disappointment for me in wanting this to be a Final Fantasy VII TTRPG, there are very few monsters, creatures, NPCs from Final Fantasy VII in here. These are straight out of Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3. Garland makes an appearance in here. Oh yeah, Mind Flayers. I don't remember what game those are in, but yeah, definitely Final Fantasy. And so, if you know Final Fantasy VII like I do, as soon as the game starts, Cloud hops off the train and he gets in a battle with those Shinra guards. Now, I forget their exact name. I don't think they're Soldier, like Cloud is Soldier, but you just gotta, adapt. So, a goblin here, level 1, skeleton, level 1. Okay. Change up these stats ever so slightly, and rather than a knife, it's gun damage, and they have a range. They don't have to be in melee distances, but use all the other goblin stats. Okay, so though I wish there were more Final Fantasy VII, but that's okay. A skilled GM can adjust that, no problem. All right. After that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different adventures in here that it comes with. This one, Chaos in Cornelia, this is literally the first thing you do in Final Fantasy 1. If I scroll down, Garland is in here. And so, where is his stat block? Let's see. Right here. Garland is right here. So, if you've ever played Final Fantasy 1, which I have started a dozen times and never finished, that's another older brother Brett story. Real quick. He had the Nintendo, and throughout the years, I got games for it. Turtles 1, 2, and 3, Final Fantasy 1, Dragon Warrior, couple others, but at the end of the day, it was my brother's Nintendo. However, or I should say because of that reason, I come home one day in the summer wanting to play Turtles 1, I think it was. Open up the cabinet, no Nintendo. What? Oh, okay, maybe my brother took it to a friend's house. Okay, so it's his Nintendo, so bummer, I gotta wait. Later that day, he comes home. Hey, Brett, where's the Nintendo? What are you talking about? Where's the Nintendo? I want to play it. Oh, yeah. I sold it. You sold it? What about my games? What about Turtles 1, 2, 3, Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior, etc.? Oh, yeah, I sold those too. Little Heath's heart broken. All right, side tangent. Okay. Going through, there's these other adventures. Some of these, I don't know what they're from. However, I did notice this demon wall. There is a demon wall in Final Fantasy VII. Demon's Gate, I think they call it. And so, look at the quality here. This is made like right on Microsoft Paint. But that's okay. It's totally serviceable, totally works. These other adventures, I don't know what they're from. That kind of looks like Final Fantasy Tactics. I'm not sure. This looks like Final Fantasy 12. That kind of looks like Final Fantasy 9. That looks like 3 or 4. Not sure. But we're going to get to my favorite one here, because it is Final Fantasy themed. The Gold Saucer. It's got so many things that the Gold Saucer has. Fortune Teller, Gondola, Haunted House, the Shooting Coaster. Let's see. The Arm Wrestling, Super Dunk. I don't remember Torpedo Attack. It's got... Oh, this must be Torpedo Attack. I think I do remember that. It must not have had a good enough prize, or I'm just not remembering because it was forever ago. Chocobo Racing. Yes, we're going to get into that. Snowboarding. Yes. Yes. So cool. I'm always looking for mini games. I feel like mini games just make a normal D&D game come alive. In my one-shot adventure, like those dice games in the bar, hell yeah. Love it. So all this Golden Saucer stuff, so cool. Love it. Couple other adventures here. Trying to think what the last... Let's see. Let's go up to the top. And then, let's see. Okay, additional rules. So I won't bore you with these, but these are things to go over. Actions as reactions is probably worth a read. Surrendering. Okay. Short rests. Yeah. But another thing that this game offers... Let's see, let me go back up to the top. In Final Fantasy VII, it's almost all humans, but I saw that they had races there. But let's go to Chocobos, right? You better believe in my Final Fantasy VII game, raising Chocobos is going to be a thing, right? That's going to be the main source of travel. So it's got all the guides for that, all their abilities. All right. I did play Final Fantasy VIII, but I got really close to the end and was so bored with it. I didn't care to finish it, and I learned too late that from a lot of monster or boss fights, you're supposed to steal like the summon. It's not materia, but like the summon magic, or you steal their abilities. And I was so far in the game, I didn't realize that, and I had missed out on these super powerful abilities. However, the one thing that I think this actually became like a real life game was the Triple Triad, and it was a card game, which I forget all the rules on how to play, but basically it was like you want the highest numbers to take over. Think of it kind of like War, the card game War, the higher the better. And so here they have Triple Triad cards for you to print out, so you can actually physically play the game. That is so cool. They also have Blitzball, which is from Final Fantasy X, which I tried getting into, but I just thought it was very cringy. The dialogue, bad. Load times, bad. Story, like a weird present future. I guess, hey, fantasy, anything goes, but it just didn't do it for me. And then more Final Fantasy X Blitzball. I know that was huge. That was a huge thing. I think Triple Triad was such a hit. And then when 9 came out, I don't know if 9 had anything like that, but they realized that these sub games were really popular in 8, and so they brought it back for 10, and I don't know what they have in other games. But yeah, so you can play all of these things from Final Fantasy games at the table. Very cool. All right, back up to the top. So that's all of the Game Master stuff. Okay, let's go to players. We're going to make a character. Now, I can't remember if I said it. I think I did. This is a re-record. So me making a character will go smoother. However, I will tell you on my first go-around, it was 23 minutes, which is a little high, but compared to Mithras, speed of lightning. It was nothing compared to that. I could figure it all out, and it made sense to me. Okay, so they give you a sample character sheet, which is super, super cool. I think every game should do this. Sometimes you just don't even know what goes where. And so, strength, is it 5 or is it like a dice number? Is it a formula? Just what goes where? And so, to have an example to look at, every game needs to have that. Okay? But here we go. Here's what I really care about. In Final Fantasy VII, there are no jobs. Like I know in Final Fantasy I, you get to pick your party. There's the fighter, the thief, black mage, red mage, white mage, and I'm going to say ninja, but I know it's not ninja. It's like karate guy, something like that. And so that, I'm pretty sure, was in many, many other versions of Final Fantasy. For 7, there's nothing in there. Now, like, everybody in there has a job. Cloud worked for Avalanche. I think I said... No. Oh, yeah. Sorry. He worked for Soldier, then quit, left, worked for Avalanche. Barrett worked for Avalanche, ran a bar. Tifa ran the bar. Aerith sold flowers, etc. But here, these are like your classes, we'll say, in like traditional D&D. And so we'll break these down, but I'll go through the list here. So there's a bard, a black mage, which, cute. These things are cute, but I would have loved to have seen the blue hooded, yellow-eyed one, but that's okay. A dragoon, which I think comes from the US Final Fantasy II, and they might have been in other ones, but that was a super, super popular archetype. Marksman, I don't know what that was from, but they're like the Rangers. A monk. Oh, was it monk? Maybe monk was Final Fantasy 1. Red mage. The art on here is cute. A sentinel. A summoner, which, here's a little knock. In the summoner, they give you all of these things that it can summon. Bahamut, so cool. But I wish it had its own separate version, separate page. If I remember it, in the later on, when we talk materia, it says refer back to the summoner's class or summoner's job, which it's like, really? Okay, you couldn't just recreate it, give it its own section, but that's okay. The thief, tinker, we've got to be getting close to the end here. Time mage is cool. I don't know what that's from, but just that anything with time is cool. A warrior, I think that was the fighter in Final Fantasy 1. And a white mage. And there we go, then equipment. Okay, so let's break down maybe the easiest, the warrior. Okay, they give you a brief description. Warriors are specialists in melee combat because of their strong physical offense and defense. They are proficient with powerful swords and armor, allowing them to become even more dangerous and durable. Okay, what weapons can they use? Swords, and their armor is light or heavy. Cool. One criticism that the YouTube video had is that they don't get limit breaks until 4th level, which we'll get into. However, every job has abilities at level 1, 2, I think they all skip 3 and then go to 4. And then you can offshoot. Oh, here we go. Here's level 3. Yeah, then they have like subclasses. So let's see. Warrior. Okay, yeah. Then you can become a Dark Knight or a Samurai. I think at level 3, which is what skips here. Yeah, 4, 5, 6. So you bounce back and forth between your core job and your sub job, we'll say. Okay. So Warrior, they have a mechanic called Rush, costs 3 NP, targets a single target. Time, 0 rounds. We're going to talk about time when we get to more magic. Range is 1 unit. That basically means close. And the ability is make an attack against the target. If you hit, you push him back 1 unit on top of the damage dealt. Okay, cool. Beatdown. Make an attack where the target has advantage on the evasion check. If you hit, you score a critical hit. That's kind of like was that Rage in D&D? I've never played a barbarian. I don't need to go through all of these, but cool that they have jobs, or we'll say classes and subclasses. Very cool. All right, let's keep clicking down. My goal is to get this tighter than the first time I recorded this. All right, jobs we went over. Equipment. All right, so in the warrior, it said that I could have swords and light or heavy armor. And so right off the bat here, they tell you if you are a beginner, which is your level is 1 to 3, you only do 1d damage, which is a d6. I don't think I've mentioned that. This is a d6 version, or d6 game. Your armor bonus for your defense, which is physical, and your resistance for magic. And then the item should cost about 500 gil. Okay, and it's universal. It's balanced across the board for your damage dice. It doesn't matter if you're a white mage or a warrior. It's based on your level. Now, you may say, well, how can a white mage deal as much damage as a fighter? Well, let's figure that out. So their weapon right here is a staff. So let's compare a staff and a sword. I don't know the answer to this, so let's see if we can find out. Staff and sword should be alphabetically close to each other, but maybe it's by different stuff. Okay. Mithril staff has an additional materia slot. Healing staff. Whenever you restore HP with magic, add 2 to the amount. Oak staff, rune staff, golden staff, power staff. Type effect. Staves increase the wielder's maximum MP by 10 per increase in the equipment rank. For example, a beginner staff grants a maximum of plus 10 MP. An advanced staff gains plus 20. In exchange, staves cannot have more than 1 damage. So there's my answer. I love this system. I love that the weapon gives you an effect. I love that the weapon gives you a base effect that, hey, if you carry this, this is how this is played out. Let's go to a sword. So there's different levels of swords, and they each have their own unique effect. But when we go down to the type effect, which is because it's a sword, when rolling an evasion check, you can make a counter attack not only when you roll a 12, but also when you roll an 11. We'll get into that when we get to the game mechanics. You do not roll to hit, it is a roll to miss, which is an interesting take, I think, if I'm understanding it correctly. Okay, so heavy armor. Here's all the different types of armors that you can have. Here's all the different effects. Now, these are all beginner. You can pick any one of these. And these, I think that's cool because I don't know for a fact, but I think like Dragon Mail, no one's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's a Dragoon. And their armor must have given them resistance to fire. I'm not sure, but I feel like these are themed based on the version of Final Fantasy that you're playing. Could be wrong on that, but that's what I think. But they each have their own unique abilities. And so my heavy armor gives me defensive plus 2, which we'll talk about what that means. Now, if I can find light armor, okay, they are different. Let's see, maximum MP5. Yeah, so different different effects. And then the type effect, it provides a plus 1 to my defense and 1 to my resilience, which is like magic defense. So the fighter or the warrior can pick between those. I love it. It's like you start the game off with magic items. when you think D&D, at least for me, 5th edition, you get a short sword, you're dealing damage, and here's your hit dice. That's it. Not until you get a magic weapon do abilities start to be added on. If it's boring, it's just a +1, +1 sword. But you really want that real juice. Give me that magic ability, that extra thing that I can do. And they just start off with that. So that's cool. And then they all upgrade themselves based on your level. So think of it as like proficiency. As you become more proficient, love it. This is a really, really awesome game. And maybe it's super popular, but my goal is to make this become more popular. Okay, limit breaks. Let me check to see how I'm doing on time here. My goal is under 2 hours. 35 minutes? Oh yeah, I'm going way faster than last time. Okay, limit breaks. When I think of Final Fantasy VII, for combat, limit breaks are very crucial. How it works in the video game, there's probably some formula, but for damage that you take, you then have this limit break bar limit that creeps up, and when the limit gets to the max, you get what's called a limit break, which is a special ability. Your ATB, your attack, I didn't remember this before, but let me see if I can Google it. Final Fantasy VII ATB. Active time battle. All right. The ATB is ticking up, and when you were at a limit break, your ATB recharged itself like instantly. Like you would attack, or let's see, how would it? Yeah, it doesn't matter if you were attacking or defending. It could be your turn. You could attack, but whenever you get hit, then that would send you over the edge for a limit break. And if you were waiting to attack, then next turn, your ATB, you're like first in line, basically, to attack next turn. So this is like the most Final Fantasy VII thing I know of. Maybe there's other limit break versions in other games. I've not played every Final Fantasy, but this is like a core mechanic to that game. Okay. And so it took me a while to understand how these work. You basically build your own limit break. And a criticism that the YouTuber had on this game, and I will say is rightfully so a criticism, that you don't get a limit break until level 4. Now, as I showed earlier with all the jobs, you get abilities starting at level 1. Your weapons give you abilities, so you've got stuff to do. You got stuff to pay attention to. And so it kind of comes across as like an extra bonus as a reward for making it to level 4. You now get a limit break, which I get. But in my homebrew version, if I choose to do this, I would probably get them a limit break at level 1. I don't think in Final Fantasy VII that there's any character that doesn't get a limit break right off the bat. I think Cloud starts the game at level 3 or 4, but let me see if I can get that too. Doesn't really matter, but I care. Final Fantasy VII, Cloud's starting level. He starts at level 6, but levels up to 7 in the first battle. This is an allusion to the number 7 because it's Final Fantasy VII. Okay, so let's see, what does Barrett start at? Do they all start at that? Barrett starting level. Barrett, Tifa, Ares will start at levels 1, 2, and 3. Oh, levels in the party average. Interesting. Okay, I also want to look this up. Here's a side tangent. Ares or Aerith? I'm almost positive it was Aerith when I played it. The name change for Final Fantasy VII's Flower Girl isn't new for the remake. However, despite being called Ares in an original North American Final Fantasy release, her name is officially Aerith. Interesting. So I thought it was Ares growing up. Through the power of time, I guess I had forgotten what it originally was. But there's a fun fact for you if you're a Final Fantasy fan, that it originally was Ares. And I don't know if I click on this, was it a translation goof? Okay. In her English language appearances since Final Fantasy Tactics, her name has been spelled Aerith. The Ares spelling has remained in certain releases of the original, though, like Final Fantasy VII's Switch port, further adding to the confusion. But Remake is going with the official Aerith spelling. Interesting. All right, I don't need to get into that. I'm guessing it was a translation error. Okay. All right, so how these work is you basically build your own, and it says here you get 10 limit points before one pops off. And I'll get into limit points. Okay. I want to make sure I get this right. I know the answer, but I want to slow my brain down. Okay. I'll read this. It's fine. In clutch situations, heroes can push beyond their usual limits to unleash incredibly powerful abilities called limit breaks. When player characters reach level 4, they can create their unique limit break ability. To use a limit break, characters have to gather 10 limit points as a prerequisite, which are consumed upon activating a limit break. You use it, you lose it. Every player also chooses a limit mode to decide under which circumstances their characters gain limit points, but they can never have more than 10 limit points. Now, in Final Fantasy VII, the video game, this only ticked up when you received damage. That was the only way to get it. I'll show you here, there's a list of ways to do it. All available limit modes, their conditions, and how much limit points you receive by fulfilling the condition are shown on the next page. I'll get into it. Alternatively, the GM may allow players to create their own limit mode conditions by assigning the amount of LP gained when it is fulfilled. I'll get into that. Limit breaks are used in the same way as magic and techs. Think of techs as like skills. But they always have no MP cost or cast time. You can start creating your unique limit break by choosing any of your known spells or techs as its basis. Then you can add a set of improvements and effects to turn the chosen ability into a limit break. So let's say you've got that rush ability that I read off for the warrior. You push somebody one unit back. Okay, that could be your basis, and then you can add on to that where you knock them back maybe 2 spaces, and you get to knock them prone and deal more damage. That's your limit break. However, each additional effect increases the rating of your limit break, and this rating cannot exceed 5 points. However, there is no benefit staying below the cap. Finally, you should choose a new name for your limit break and try to visualize what it looks like when its effect is activated. All possible improvements that you can use to create your limit break together, their rating costs are listed on the next page. You cannot pick the same improvement more than once, but the GM may allow other improvements than the ones listed below by assigning them a rating cost. Okay, so here are all of the things that you can do. I think this page is laid out poorly, but once you figure it out, once I tell you how to understand and read it, then you'll get it. Okay. Limit mode. These are just names to help you remember what the limit would be called. Limit points. Let me back up half a step. These are ways that you earn limit points. And you need 10 of them to get a limit break. Again, in Final Fantasy VII, in order to get a limit break, your character needs to receive damage in combat. Okay, so here we go. Altruist. you will earn 5 limit points if you donate to a charitable organization or a person in need. And Assailant, you get 10 if you get a surprise round in combat. That one I actually really like. Athlete, you will get 5 limit points if you work out or perform a physical activity for at least 1 hour. Okay. Avenger, you will get 4 points if an ally that you can see suffers a knockout. Okay. Going all down the list here, you earn points if you do things. All right. So I guess these are cool, but and I'd have to test it out. I'm sure I would really like it, but my initial impression is it should just be I receive damage. Then you get like amped up in battle. Your what's the word I'm looking for? Your adrenaline goes up, and that's what triggers your limit break. But like here, you sleep for 8 hours. That's gonna get you 3 points towards a limit break. Get out of here. I don't like that. Okay. Now, you then get to build your own. So you need 10 points to activate it. Then to build your own, you can get any combination of 5 points of these options here. So they said you can't stack them. So just as a quick example, you can do 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can do all 5 of these things as your limit break. Or get down to some more powerful abilities. You could pick this one, which is +3, and this +2. Or you could do 2 +2s and a +1, etc. Any combination of 5, these become your limit break. And as they say, if you've got other ones that you want to come up with, great, go for it. Just make sure that your GM approves it. Okay? So these limit breaks, I like and don't like. I more so probably don't like break the law of the land. 5 points for being a criminal. I'd have to play with it. If I was being honest, you'd have to play with it. I'd have to play with it. Okay? But limit breaks are a very Final Fantasy VII mechanic, and that's why when I was looking over that, I thought, heck yeah, we are in the ballpark for what I'm looking for. All right. Last thing here for players is espers. These espers are more or less the summons in Final Fantasy VII. And so, sometimes called eidolons, are extraordinary magical beings that exist beyond the realm of humans. Blah, 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 blah. When reaching level 5, each player chooses one esper that bonds with their character. Note that these esper bonds act independently of the ones granted by the summoner job. An esper bond grants a permanent support effect, as well as a call ability that can be acted in combat with an action. You can use each call ability once per battle, but without any costs or cast time, and all damage dealt by calls ignores the target's defense and resistance. All right, so let's look at Bahamut because he's clearly the coolest. His support ability says, when you fall from any height, you can gracefully glide down to avoid damage. You can levitate 1 unit above the ground for up to 10 seconds. Cool. The call ability. Choose an enemy on the battlefield. After 3 rounds, the target suffers fire damage equal to 5 times your current level. So I don't know. Final Fantasy VII has the summons, which the summoner class, right? But they don't really have a connection to this. And I don't know. I could be way wrong, but I feel like Final Fantasy IX had some system like that. But knowing me, I'm probably wrong on that. All right, let's go to... Let's see, is materia on here? Talents, maybe... What did we not talk about? Do we not talk about talents? Oh, okay, yeah. Skip talents. So as I'm going over this a second time, I mean, it's certainly. I was so confident, but before I said it, I'm less confident. I would say this is high fantasy. I mean, I understand it's Final Fantasy, right? But I mean, you get a lot going on. There's a lot to keep track of. You've got your jobs and all their abilities. Your weapon has abilities. Your armor has abilities. You've got a limit break tacking on. You've got espers that give you effects. And now we're going to be at talents, which are non-combat skills. So when you're outside of combat, for role-playing purposes, you have all of these different things that you can get benefits from. So let me just pick one here. Chocobo Sage. You can comfortably tame and build friendships with friendly animals and monsters. Okay. I guess I'll do another one here. Carpenter. Given enough time and materials, you can create and repair any object that is mostly made out of wood, such as furniture or vehicles. Okay. I won't go into more details, but man, your character's got a lot of stuff that they can do, which I think is very cool. All right. I know. Let's see. If I search materia. Okay, here we go. Let me find materia. What page? Gotta be getting, okay, weapons. I'll pause it here and then I'll find exactly what I need. Okay, it was under equipment. I just didn't go far enough down. So here's materia. In order to buy it, it's 500 gil. Allows you to use the fire ability. Now, I said this for the summoners class and the espers. Like, come on. Give me a page that tells me what all these materias do. Are you really going to make me go print off the black mage job or go back and look at it? That's kind of weak. I think it should easily have a page that describes what all these do. But here's all of the materia. Now, something that I think is missing. Oh, no. It's here. Okay, this was another home run for me. Compared to the Final Fantasy D6, which I have right here, probably would be good for me to go back and compare these. But it has HP plus, MP plus. Your maximum HP is increased by 10. These must be typos. You maximum. You should be your maximum. MP is increased by 10. And so I also would like to read to see if materia levels up here. That might be under the optional rules, which I don't need to go over. But, if you play it like Final Fantasy VII, the game, at some point, let materia level up and give it a boost to the stats. Like here, range materia increases the range of your weapon by 1 unit. If you let it level up, 2 units, 3 units, etc. All right. But pretty extensive list here of materia. Did I go too far? Yeah, there we go. Now, I don't know if every single materia in here is represented from the game, but pretty cool stuff. Also, in a previous podcast where I talked about this, now I'm blanking on the name, but there was was it just called ability? No, it was called monster skill. Let's see. Final Fantasy VII monster skill materia. Enemy skill. So this is such... Oh, well, let me just see if it's in here. I would be very surprised. Enemy skill? I know I can't just do skill, but enemy skill is definitely, if it's not in here, something that needs to be on here. And that could be such a cool thing. If you receive ice damage from a ice creature, roll a resistance check or roll a magic check. And if you succeed, you then learn that ability. I think that's totally cool. All right. Now, there's something here. Oh, we'll get into cast time of magic in a little bit. That's no bueno. Okay. How are we doing on time? My goal is under 2 hours. We're at 1 hour. Okay, we're going to be good. So, okay, gameplay. Page 1. Final Fantasy is a series of video games where each title features its unique story, blah, blah, blah. Omega Fantasy. Now, this is Omega Fantasy 2, and I have not gone over Omega Fantasy 1. I've not looked at it. However, in this page, if I can find Omega Fantasy 2. Omega Fantasy, but better. No way to describe this. It has the same core concepts and mechanics as Omega Fantasy 1, but got more content and better balance. All right. I don't care about you, Omega Fantasy. Omega Fantasy 2 is what I want. So, Omega Fantasy is a tabletop game that helps you to create Final Fantasy adventures with your friends. And this release, named Omega Fantasy 2, is an improved version of the original release. To play, you only need dice, paper, pens, this book, and at least one friend, but a group size of 4 to 6 is recommended. To complete an adventure, your group needs to meet one or more times and play the game, and each such gathering is called a session. All right, who's the game master? Great. Example role-playing, what's a party? Okay, here's the mechanics. Dice rolls are used to help decide the outcome of uncertain actions, but their exact nature depends on the context. This game only uses 6-sided dice, and we use D shorthand to refer to such a die. Furthermore, we use, for example, 4D to describe a roll of 4 dice, where the result is the sum of all rolled dice. Checks are the main tool to help the GM to decide and narrate the outcome of actions. He can either ask players for checks or perform them himself in secret. Checks are usually 2D rolls, and higher numbers mean a better outcome for the roller. The minimum result to succeed is called difficulty, shortened DC, and often has to be decided by the GM. This DC should be based on the difficulty of the action and the proficiency of the actor. Most DCs vary between 5 and 9. Ones below this range are considered easy, while the ones above it are very challenging. Okay? Now, you heard me once. You heard me 1,000 times. D20 systems, I do not like the difficulty check. I don't like the DC. I don't like that a GM can just say, this challenge is 14. And another one can say, you know what? I think it's 13. I like it based in reality. D100 systems, bare bones fantasy, it's based in reality, based on a character's skill. If you're 70% proficient in it, you've got a 70% chance to succeed. So I don't like this aspect of it. However, the fact that it is 2d6 gives us that bell curve. So it's not as swingy as a d20. I don't know which episode, but recently I complained about the swinginess of okay, I understand that, I'm currently playing a paladin in 5th edition. I understand I can't hit all the time. I understand that armor class is a thing. I understand critical fails are a thing. But there's a pretty big range in there where really? I should be missing? I roll a 12 plus a 3. I'm at 15 and I miss the armor class. And then there's so many numbers in there. You could be at essentially a 2 through 10 on any given roll. So that would be 2 through 10. That's 8. 40%. There's like a 40% chance in there that you're always missing. And I read or heard something that, that's the chaos of combat. Okay, but then even in my skills, like, I have a 40% chance almost just baked in that I'm going to lose or miss out or be bad at something. I don't like that. And so to counteract that, the more you level up, the more then you're just adding numbers. So I say, like, get rid of those addings. But for this, with a bell curve, they basically give you a window of 5 to 9. If it's below 5, what are you even rolling for, basically? And then 9, you've got only 10, 11, and 12 that you can miss on the high end. And so, or I should say make on the high end. So I'm doing a bad job of explaining this, but with the bell curve, it's not as swingy. It's tighter numbers. And so the more skillful your character is, which they do add numbers, when I add a 1 to a D6, that's a much bigger percentage than adding a +1 on a D20 roll. It's 5% to almost 10%. I'm rough mathing that. Somebody's going to call me out and say, hey, idiot. It's obvious this number, but whatever. So, not my favorite. It's not a D20 roll under, D100 roll under, any roll under, but I like it better. Okay, rant over. That was a big rant. Since checks are 2D rolls, the lowest and highest possibility here are 2 and 12, which I kind of went over. Here's interesting. Advantage and disadvantage are always 3 dice. Advantages give me the 2 highest. Disadvantages give me the 2 lowest, or you take those. So I think that's a pretty interesting way to do advantage and disadvantage. Now, without reading this line for line, when you roll, or when we get into character creation and you roll, you'll see that you add numbers based on your strength, defense, magic. And so the skills are strength, defense, magic, resistance, agility. And then I don't think these are stats, but we have movement and evasion. So one thing that they don't have is perception. And that's interesting. I don't think I've played a system that doesn't have some sort of perception. Can I hear what they're saying? Can I read lips? So, kind of interesting with your skills, your techs, your whatever ability, use those, and then maybe the GM can give you a boost or advantage, but there's no ability baked in, which, again, I find interesting. I would love to play this and figure out, what should we do for that? Okay, so 2D plus a number. The range is 5 to 9 usually, unless things are getting real hard, then you can go over that 9. And like I said, if it's 5 or less, what are you doing? Okay, so I think the time has come. Let's build a character. Let's see. So here's more explanations on things for like how to understand your character sheet, what hit points are, what strength is. So let me go over these. Physical attacks. Do they have something for perception? Let's see. Attack. Involving attack, defend, use an item. Yeah, there might be something. Let's see if I can listen. Here. Nope. Yeah, so there's no mechanic for perception, which, again, I'd like to play. Okay, so there's a good breakdown here of how to... Oh, yeah, all the status effects. Okay, here we go. Example, character creation. There's the character. These, okay. Like, step one was, like, pick your... Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay. Every player creates a character who is a protagonist in the game world created by the GM. To create a level 1 character, copy or print the character sheet on the next page. I've got one printed. It allows you to track various aspects about your character, and there is an example of a filled out sheet that you can use as a guideline. Every game should do that. Choose your character's name and give a short description of him or her. Okay? So, now, as I said earlier, when I did this the first time, it took me 23 minutes. Here, I'm going to go much faster. So, my character is called Sirius. Briefly summarize your character's story and explain his or her motivation. Okay. I have that he's very poor. He helps out with the family business. Now, in the world of Final Fantasy VII, the cyberpunk-esque kind of, being that it's a modern setting, I'm sure this took place in even medieval times, but my family runs a garbage business. Okay? And I have to work to help bring the family money. I'm not that educated. I don't really like school. I'm tired all the time. I'm frail. I'm bullied. And I kind of look like Cloud. I'm blonde and I'm 5'10". Okay. So choose a job. Well, I could either go warrior or sentinel. And I'm going to go sentinel, which is on page... Now, they do say to print this off. So I would have all of these things right here. What's so cool? No need to roll. Here's everything I need right here. For being a sentinel, my hit points, 27. I have 16 magic points. My agility is +3. And my strength is +1. Okay? Rolling for stats is cool, but bam. Based on my job, if I'm doing my job well, these are the things that I need. So there we go. Page 14. I'm going to make a note of that, which I'll probably forget exactly where I wrote that down, but that's okay. All right, let's go to the next step. All right, print or copy. Job description shows the attributes and abilities gained at each level. When your character is level 3, you have to decide between 2 archetypes. Archetypes represent different specializations. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, beginner equipment. So let's go check that out. Page 14, I remembered. Third time saying this, you would have this printed out, so this would be super easy. Okay. Right off the bat, a little description of what a sentinel is. If you are a new player, this is great. It is a combination of a pre-made character and making one yourself. Here's all of your stats and all of your abilities right there laid out for you, but you create the background. I think for talent, I think you get to pick that as well, which is a non-combat skill for role-playing purposes and game mechanic, but it's non-combat. And so this is really great. It gets you up and running right away. Okay, weapon is a sword. Armor is my heavy armor. So on my character sheet, we're going to go back down to equipment. Equip. Typing is hard. Oh, okay. Yeah. Here we go. I get to pick the sword that I want. Because of my sword, we already went over this. I have this effect, and then I get to pick the type of sword that I want. Let's see. What sword would I want? I want a Vorpal Blade. On a critical hit, I triple my usual damage instead of just doubling it. So cool. Okay. And my armor is heavy, which I then get to pick my armor and the benefit. My defense is +2, so I'll write that down on my character sheet. All right. We're going to talk about how combat works because I did skip that. As I said, it's not attack to hit. It's kind of like attack to miss. At least that's my understanding. All right, come on. I got to write this page down too. All right. Later on, we would pick archetypes. At levels marked as specialization, you can choose from one of the following benefits. We'll talk about that later. Okay, I'm missing something. I missed this here. Finally, the equipment subsection explains how you can customize your character's starting equipment. The table on the right summarizes the benefits gained at further levels, all of which are explained in detail within this section. Okay, so when you specialize at the start, you add an additional 6 to the pool of fortune dice, which I did not read fortune dice. You gain a second Esper, you gain a second talent, you gain a second limit mode, you gain access to the archetype of your job. When you use a spell, tech, or reaction ability from your archetype, its MP cost is halved, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm missing materia, where you get materia. Maybe that was in combat. Okay, I think that was in combat. So, on my character sheet here, a couple things that I've missed. I was told my agility was 3, so my movement equals 1 plus my agility. Last time I checked, 3 plus 1 equals 4. My evasion DC, we'll talk about that with combat, is 12 minus my agility. So 12 minus 3 is 9. I have to roll a 9 or higher to dodge out of the way of incoming attacks. And okay, I missed techs. Let's see if I can go back and find this here. 14. Oh yeah, I totally forgot this. Okay, because I'm a sentinel, weapon, sword, and at level 1, my tech, that's this little gear here, is guard. So right off the bat, level 1, I can gain N def until the end of my next turn. This is in the status effects and enhanced defense until the end of my turn. And so let me pull that up. Again, this is faster because I went through it. But N def. They have an enhance. Okay, N Atar. This is just N attack rating, and this can be your attack, it can be your defense, your magic, your resistance. These icons all mean something. And it says according attribute is increased by 1 plus half my level. So for my guard, I can increase 1 plus half my level, so 1.5. I don't think you want to deal with half damages, but I guess that's a thing. I want to say when I read this before, I could not find anything on rounding. Do you round down? Do you round up? That's something I don't have an answer to. Okay. Now, let's go to combat. Last thing, and then we are done. How am I doing on time? My goal is under 2 hours. All right, we're going to do it. Okay, feeling good. Combat. Okay. Let's get the most concise description of combat. Okay, here's what we need. Oh yeah, I also don't like initiative. We'll talk about that here. Combat. Encounters are played out in a series of rounds, and during a round, every combatant takes one turn. Every combatant takes one turn. At the start of the battle, both parties choose who takes the first turn in each round on their side, and the GM decides which side goes first. The GM decides which side goes first? I do not like that. There's got to be some agility checks. It's got to be like the amount of people in the party. If more than half beat their agility check, then you go first. I don't like that the GM just decides. Okay. Then let me highlight here. This is where I'm at. Then the opposing parties take alternating turns until every combatant has taken one and the round is finished. The turn order for each side is decided as follows. At the end of their turns, every combatant chooses an ally who has not taken a turn in this round and should take the next turn for their side. So somebody goes first. Let's say Cloud goes first. Then when Cloud is done, you get to say, Barrett, you go next. Boo. It's got to be stat driven. I do not like that. If one side has more combatants, they take consecutive turns at the end of the round until every participant has taken one. Announce the start of each round so there is no confusion. When a party ambushes the other before combat, the GM can decide that they gain a surprise round. Okay, there are much better initiative systems than this. I think this is pretty garbage. Combat proficiencies are determined by the following 7 numerical attributes: hit points, mana points, strength, defense, magic, resistance, agility. All right, attack. You want to attack. You attack an enemy with your weapon. He may evade by passing an evasion check with a DC of 12 minus his agility. So if he's super agile, that number will be lower and easier for him to dodge. So now, while I said I don't really like, I shouldn't say I don't like this system, but it's not a roll under, I will give it credit that the numbers are based in, reality is not the right word, but they're based on something. They're based on a character's ability, their stat to avoid it because of their agility. So it's not just an arbitrary system. It's based on a stat. So if your goal is to be very agile, work on that, train on that, find a materia to boost your agility. That's how it should be done. Okay? HP. Okay, hang on. If he fails the check, you reduce the target's HP by your weapon's damage plus your strength. So weapons damage comes from that table that said beginner. This is not right, but beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And so beginner was 1D. So 1d6 plus your strength. So for me as a sentinel, I don't roll. I say I attack the goblin. Okay? Then you... so this can be player facing. You say I attack the goblin. Okay? Then the DM tells you that the goblin's agility is 5. Okay? Well, that's probably too high. Let's say 2. So then they roll their dice, and they know that they have to roll 10 or higher. I should look that up. If it meets it, beats it. And Here's another side tangent. I don't understand the history of this. I don't understand why it matters. Why in Dungeons and Dragons, armor class, and maybe to an extent DC, but armor class is hidden. It's a waste of time. You're in combat, especially the first round. You roll, and let's say you roll close. You're at a 14, 13, 14. Okay? Then you're waiting for the DM to say hits or miss. The DM should just say, all right, the Wolves' natural armor class is 14. And then the players just know. Because to speed up time, you've probably seen videos that you should roll your attack and damage at the same time. Okay? Well, along those lines, if you know the number that you have to beat for armor class, then you just roll and you either say you hit or miss. Or you can role play that to say, like, if you were close to the number, like I hit, but the armor absorbed it. Something like that. So that's just a tangent. I don't understand why armor class is secret. And if I run 5th edition again, I'm going to say, hey, this is the number you have to beat. Roll this or higher. All right. Tangent. If he fails the check, you reduce the target's HP by your weapon's damage plus your strength. If the evader rolls a 2, you make a critical hit, doubling your usual damage. If he rolls a 12, not only does your attack miss, but the evader makes an attack action on you instead, which you cannot evade. Not sure if there's a talent there or if there's a materia there, but those numbers could be tweaked where if they roll a 2 or a 3, you get a critical hit. And then, let's see, you wouldn't want a lower than 12. So maybe it's 12 with advantage or 12 with disadvantage for a counterattack. I think that works. Okay. Attacking, I think, pretty straightforward. Usually in a TTRPG, attacking is easier than magic. So here's magic. You use a magical ability by spending MP, choosing a target within its range, and concentrating for a duration. While concentrating, you cannot take actions or evade. After the cast time is up, the spell effect occurs on the target right before your turn and cannot be evaded even if you are not in range anymore. If the spell deals damage or restores HP, add your magic to the amount, kind of like you add strength for an attack. Every spell's description has information on its cast time, MP cost, target range, and effect. So let's see, can I find magic again? I'll pause it and then I'll come back. Okay, so found it, and here's a criticism again. These spells should have their own page because I was looking, and where is it? Oh, it's on the black mage's spells or the white mage or the red mage. That's where the materia is found. All right. That's pretty lame. They should have their own pages dedicated to that. I guess it saves pages, but come on, you're only at, what are we at? I don't know, and I don't care to check. But it's not, actually, I got the paper copies right here. We are at 100 pages. I guess maybe they had a 100-page limit. I don't know, but okay. Regardless, here's just something interesting. Here's the spell Fire. Okay, it uses 4 NP. 4 magic points. You can target a single target. Time to cast 0 rounds. It just happens immediately. Range 3 units. Okay, it's pretty far. That's good. Excuse me. Okay, once it becomes upgraded to Firaga, that's just how I always said it. Costs 12 MP. targets a single target, time 1 round, which we'll talk about, has a 5U range, and it deals a whopping 6D fire damage to the target. Okay, so let's compare fire to Firaga. Magic points is 4, magic points is 12. That is 3 times as much MP. Okay. 2 damage up to 6 damage. Also 3 times. Okay. I would think the balance here is the MP cost. For that 3 times as much damage, you also have to pay 3 times as much. But you are also restricted in that you say, I cast Firaga at Garland. Okay, so you're the black mage. You now just sit there for 1 round and do nothing. I don't know how long the average round in combat is. Let's say 25 minutes. 25 minutes. So you took your whatever your last turn is. You've said, okay, I'm going to cast Firaga. Now you have to wait another 25 minutes for that to go around. 40 minutes, 50 minutes of nothing seems super lame to me. The only thing I can think of is that, like most TTRPGs, magic users are pretty busted. And so they probably don't want you just unleashing your big spells. It will be over real quick. And so that's just a way to nerf magic users. I'd have to really play it to see whether I like it or not, but it does seem a little to me. A little, really? I gotta wait this long? And I was just gonna say, I don't know, but when we get to Flare, which I assume is the upgraded of Firaga, which is about double what Flare is about double what Firaga is, but this is pretty brutal. 6D plus 45 damage. You get 45 damage automatically. The damage dealt ignores the resistance. Okay, which that's something I've probably not touched on. So defense is if you are taking damage, if you fail the evasion, take your damage, and then let's say the opponent rolls 10. Okay, you're going to take 10, but if your defense is 2, you only take 8. Resistance is your resistance to magic. Same thing if you are receiving magic damage, but your resistance is 2 and the damage was 10, you then only take 8 in magic damage because you are 2 points of it was resisted. Okay. So 2 rounds of nothing. I couldn't think of a Final Fantasy where the level of the spell took longer for you to cast. Like there was no like cast timer. Final Fantasy VII, it's your turn. You pick the spell, it goes off. Then you wait for your ATB to build back up. Which, side tangent, I think that the initiative needs to have some sort of tie-in to your agility. Like, it would be a pain. I'd have to really sit down and work on it to find a streamlined version, research other ways initiative is made, but that was kind of a benefit of Final Fantasy VII. If you could get your character's agility up, there were some effects that would alter your speed. Haste, I think, is what one of them was called. And you could really be ripping off combats pretty quick. So, like, if it's a magic user probably wouldn't have a way to speed this up, but if there was a way in testing or whatever that you could increase and drop around, maybe a magic weapon that just says, -1 round to all spells. But that would definitely have to be something that I'd have to play test. I imagine the people that made this game play tested that. And so that's how they balanced it. All right. that's my big spiel on magic. Okay, couple things here. Tech. You use a physical ability. Techs are used the same way as magic, but their damage and healing is amplified by your strength instead of your magic, except if their use already includes this bonus in another way, for example, by involving an attack. So my guard ability is a tech where I can add my level to my defense. Okay. Speaking of defense, you can defend. All total damage that you receive by attacks until your next turn is halved. Okay. I think that's how it works in the game. You can use an item, you can re-equip, and you can dash. Combatants can also learn two kinds of innate traits: passive, effects that are permanently active, like, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think like HP plus. That's an ability that's just always active. And reaction, allow you to cast certain actions on someone else's turn under specific conditions. So I don't want to take the time to search it, but I know in the game there was a materia called Defend, and a character would jump in front of another character and absorb the damage for them. So that would be definitely a reaction. They give you an example of combat here, which I do not care to read, but I love that they have that. They talk status effects. They give you the status effects, their definitions. If I go to the character sheet, they give here combat action summary, how to attack. They've got status effects here, so you know. Let me go to the example here. Here's the story, the background of your character. Here's the stats. Here's your equipment. Here's your limit break and your espers, and then how to play the game. So you got your character sheet, you've got your jobs. That's your 2-page character sheet. Everything you need. So cool. So this is a home freaking run. I'm so glad Google exists. I'm so glad all of these people exist. Maybe someday I'll reach out to some of these people and see if I can get an interview. It's just so great. You know what? I'm going to reach out to the first guy right here. Edgar Edgelord. Sounds like my kind of guy. So that's it. Is it exactly what I'm looking for? An exact Final Fantasy VII TTRPG? No. But I would say we are 95% of the way there. The only two things I think I would change: one, the bestiary doesn't really have Final Fantasy VII stuff in there. Okay? And that's easy enough to change, I think. I bet you I could probably figure out exactly like some formula for actual monster damages and compare to creatures in the bestiary here and do some sort of calculation and have it be no problem. 2, the initiative system, I think that's pretty trash. Maybe it plays really well, but the fact that the GM just decides who gets to go, I feel like whoever was designing that dropped the ball. Maybe that's how they like it, but that's just me. And the time to cast spells, that's something that I'd have to really test. Probably the only other thing to mention, since we got the time limit here, is, let's see, Final Fantasy VII weapons. Now, I talked very highly... Oh, I don't want those weapons. I talked very highly about how the type of weapon you have and the exact weapon that you have give you abilities. So where's equipment? Equip. Okay, let me just do the bookmarks. Okay, so Mithril Sword, Buster Sword, Gunblade, Organ Axe, Blood Sword, right? The only thing I would maybe do, and No, I don't want those weapons. But see, like, that's a good example. These weapons should be statted in the bestiary. So maybe there's some supplement I don't know about and everything's in there, but those should like definitely be in there. So the last thing I would just say is let's see, bonuses. So go in and pull from these exact weapons from the game, right? Give Cloud all of these options here. Another feature not mentioned is I briefly mentioned is the leveling up of materia and the materia slots and how many points they earn. So like the Apocalypse here, this one if I were to load Final Fantasy VII right now, I would be in the town, probably in the southeast corner of the map, where these creatures give off really good, I think it's AP to level up your materia. And I'm trying to reproduce Knights of the Round. And so they give you abilities here. Let's see, what does Cut do? The Cut has so many things here. Cut. No, I don't care to go over that. But pull from these. The one big weird thing of Final Fantasy is the what are they called? Bracelets. The only armor in Final Fantasy VII are the bracelets. Like, oh, Sephiroth is attacking me. I hope he only hits my wrist. That's crazy. So in the game here, they do give you the armor, but there are slots for accessories. And just like magic items, they can all have different effects. So going off on a tangent as I do, but this game, Omega Fantasy 2, it's Omega Fantasy 1, but better. And I mean, amazing work to everybody that had something to do with this. This is 95% a home run for me. Somebody might say, the creators might say 100%, and that's great. Creative Commons might tweak this for free. The fan made, community made, when it's a thing of passion and not of money, beautiful things can happen. Let that be a life lesson for you. All right. Well, as I said, this is a second time recording. I can only pray to any God that exists that the audio is much better, no popping, cracking sounds, and I don't have to do this a third time. But I would love to talk Omega Fantasy 2 again, because I was looking for something like this. I was ready to design my own, and bam, there it is. Complete system, 100 pages for free. Final Fantasy across the board, most influenced by Final Fantasy VII, Triple Triad, Gold Saucer. The link will be in the description. You got to check this out. It's so great. So, thank you so much for listening. Thanks so much for coming around. I'll see you in the next episode. Later.